Hi, Captain.
All right. Hi, best friends. I'm Tabby.
And I'm Caitlin, and today we will be discussing Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey.
Yes, she's our queen. We love her. So moving forward, we're actually going to do things a little differently. So in some of our past episodes, we have recorded like a synopsis episode where you can get a gist of what the book is about and then listen to our part two. We have decided not to do that with our regular reads. We're still going to be doing synopses for the TLDR segments. But really, for our fun books, we encourage you to read it on your own. That way, if you want to participate in the book club discussion, you can, because it's really just, you're not going to get the same like feel for the book as you would as
Yeah.
if we were reading it to you.
Yeah. And we just feel like whenever we summarize books that are like meant to be for more like fun entertainment purposes, like we can never like do them justice.
Yeah.
And we want you to enjoy these books as thoroughly as possible and to be able to like fully like participate in the actual book club discussion. Like that's the whole point of us starting this podcast. And I think we kind of got a little too focused on trying to summarize the book. So we just encourage you to like read it on your own. And then again, for those TLDR books, we will summarize those bad boys for you because
That's what it's for.
that's what it's for. We read those so you don't have to.
So we are going to be adding in a couple new things to the segment later today that we're really excited about. But the podcast will just look a little bit different moving forward. So what we will kick off with, as always, is reading the back of the book. So I'm actually going to have Caitlin do it because I don't have mine right in front of me.
I do, no worries. King crab fisherman Fox Thornton has a reputation as a sexy, carefree flirt. Everyone knows he's a guaranteed good time, in bed and out, and that's exactly how he prefers it. Until he meets Hannah Bellinger. She's immune to his charm and good looks, but she seems to enjoy his personality and wants to be friends. Bizarre. But he likes her too much to risk a fling, so platonic pals it is. Now Hannah's in town for work, crashing in Fox's spare bedroom. She knows he's a notorious ladies' man, but they're definitely just friends. In fact, she's nursing a hopeless crush on a colleague, and Fox is just the person to help with her lackluster love life. Armed with a few tips from Westport's resident Casanova, Hannah sets out to catch her coworker's eye. Yet the more time she spends with Fox, the more she wants him instead. As the line between friendship and flirtation begins to blur, Hannah can't deny she loves everything about Fox, but she refuses to be another notch on his bedpost. Living with his best friend should have been easy. Except now she's walking around in a towel and sleeping right across the hall, and Fox is fantasizing about waking up next to her for the rest of his life. And man overboard, he's fallen for her, hook, line, and sinker. Helping her flirt with another guy is pure torture. But maybe if Fox can tackle his inner demons and show Hannah he's all in, she'll choose him instead.
That is such a long, like, back cover.
It was like, that's the entire book right there.
That is the whole book.
And also, I loved like the dramatics of like,
I did not realize like
man
how
overboard.
detailed that was.
Yeah. Anyway, so there you go. We did do a synopsis. You're welcome.
Didn't even need to do a synopsis because Tessa Bailey did it for us. So the first time I've read this book a few times. The first time I read it, I actually didn't like it. And that was because I think, I don't know, maybe I was just like getting in a weird headspace. Like you have to be in the right mood to read a rom-com, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I felt like at times there was like some repetitiveness, and like I think that really drew me away from the book. However, when I reread it again, I really, really enjoyed it. And I kind of got to see like how Tessa Bailey strayed away, I think, from some of the normal aspects of like a rom-com and dove a little bit deeper into some like harder to talk about topics. And so I really, really liked that aspect of the book. And so going back through, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. If you'd asked me the first time, it would have probably been like an 8.
Yeah.
But I really, really did enjoy it.
Oh, good. Yeah. And so I loved this the first time I read it. And for me, it's also a 10 out of 10. I liked this one better than It Happened One Summer. And I think the reason why is because, first of all, I was rooting for Fox and Hannah so hard in the first book anyway.
Right.
But like, I really liked their dynamic even more than I liked the one between Piper and Brendan in the first book. And so for me, like this one is my favorite of the two. It's a 10 out of 10. It was such a comforting, like feel good, warm fuzzies book for me. And I
Yeah,
loved
and
it.
it didn't like scare me like some other rom-coms do. Like where you have like the giant miscommunication with like 10 pages left of the book. Like there was one, but it was very well done. And like it really
And they reacted like reasonable people.
yeah, it wasn't like some outlandish like thing that happened where they blow it out of proportion and leave forever type thing. It was I don't know, it was really sweet and I loved just how supportive like Hannah was towards Fox and like I love their love.
I do too, because it's like it's based on
Friendship.
something, yeah, friendship. And it's based on something a lot more like substantial than like what Piper and Brendan had, which like I'm not coming for the first book. I did love the first
No.
book, but it
I
was
don't
very
love
much
insta
insta
love.
love. Yeah, same. So we'll kind of talk about some of the characters. Do you want to talk about Hannah
Yeah, so Hannah, she is our leading lady, and if you haven't read it yet, that's an inside joke.
first?
Um, so Hannah is the younger sister of Piper, who we got to see quite a bit in the first book. She definitely just acted as like the supporting second character. She was there strictly to like help Piper, realize her true intentions and like what she was supposed to do. And that was really cool of her. But I loved seeing her in this aspect because she really kind of blossomed on her own. So she started off definitely as, kind of like the girl next door, really unsuspecting type girl. Like no one really paid attention to her. And she definitely kind of gave us some unintentional pick me energy, which is fine. But like bookworm, like listens to records, like makes music her personality type thing. But like
Mhm.
it's genuine.
Yeah, she actually is that person.
But yeah, like she is the Tumblr girl, like blueprint. She is
Mhm.
what everybody wanted to be in the early 2000s.
Yeah, but effortlessly.
But yeah, like she did it on her own. So we actually like after reading this kind of compared this whole book to The Princess Diaries.
Which
Um
fucking slaps. If you haven't seen The Princess Diaries, go watch it.
where have you been?
There's multiple. Yeah. Bella, where the hell
Where
have
the
you
hell have you
been?
been, Loca? So she is your Mia Thermopolis.
Hmm.
She is like takes your ponytail down, glasses off, like, oh my God, I didn't even see you there type person.
Yeah.
She goes to like this transformation, but it's a personality transformation. It's
Hmm.
not like an actual physical one.
Right.
Um,
Because I mean, just like
she's
Mia
beautiful.
Thermopolis, she was always hot. It's just that like she dresses in a way that's like more like quirky, like she wears ball caps and like
In like
t-shirts.
sweatshirts and
Yeah. And so like whenever she does like dress herself up, like she is a little hottie. But it's like that's not her most comfortable like presentation of herself. Like that's not what she's gonna wear on a daily basis. And that's
no.
okay.
And that's okay, girly. But what I loved most about Hannah is that she is such a dedicated friend. Like she like recognizes that Fox is, dealing with a lot of trauma from his childhood and has a lot of stuff that he's working through. And so like really makes it a goal to be there for him and to not push these boundaries that he's trying to push on her. Even though she wants to, like she recognizes that he needs help and that she wants to be the one to help him. And I think that was my absolute favorite part about her was that she put aside like her wants and like ignored the bond that they definitely had to make sure that he was, becoming the best person he could be.
Yeah, because she really had like such a like a love for him that went beyond her like physical attraction and chemistry with him. Like she wanted a genuine relationship with him. And she was like, well, we aren't going to have that unless we like get to
Work
the
through
bottom of these
this.
insecurities.
Yes.
Um, so next, there's not a whole lot of characters in this book as far as like ones that matter to the story, but we'll talk a little bit about Sergei because Sergei is Hannah's crush that she had a crush on him in the first book as well. It's the dreamy, artistic director that she works with, or producer, I guess. Is he a producer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Director?
I'm not sure. She works as like an assistant for him on
I
set,
think
but
he's a
he's like
director.
he's the director. Okay. Yeah, yeah, because he's like determining like the set and like all
Yeah.
the choices. Yeah, so he is like this dreamy man who has like a confidence about him, and he's he's very sure of his decisions and his art. And Hannah really likes that about him. And she likes that he is like always kind of doing things that surprise people. Like she just thinks he is dreamy. And so since we're on like this Princess Diaries like kick, it's like he is the Josh Bryant of the book. She
Yes.
thinks she wants to be with him. And like whenever she finally like gets the chance, and he's like, "Hey, I am into you. I'd like to take you out." She's like, like this isn't really doing it for me. Just like Mia when she kisses Josh in the shed and she's like, I couldn't, my foot didn't pop. Like it wasn't it. There's no sparks anymore. Okay, so Sergey, obviously a Russian name. And he even, in the book, Tessa Bailey is like, yes, this man has a Russian accent. He is clearly Russian. But for
We
some reason,
somehow both pictured the same type of man, and it was not a Russian.
so yes, for some reason, Tally and I both imagine a man with like dark hair, facial hair, and a more like olive tone, like deeper complexion. So Tabby and also in my mind he has like a Southern California accent with like a deep voice. Like he
Yeah,
is
I'm
not.
picturing like some like Silicon Valley type bro.
Yeah, like he is not Russian to me. Like absolutely no offense to Tessa Bailey, but you're wrong. He's not Russian. So Tabby and I each had our own like fan cast in mind. And so for me, I had pictured him as Rahul Kohli, who is in a lot of like the Netflix originals, like the Haunting series and Midnight Mass. And he's a little cutie. You should look him up if you haven't. Um,
And I picture Dev Patel, and he is freaking adorable, and I love him. And like he definitely just gives off like this air of like, I don't know, like cockiness almost. But you may have known him from like Slumdog Millionaire is probably the one that he's like most popular in. And then like Modern Love. He's in like a lot of rom-coms, but
yes.
I love him.
And he's also just like this guy that like he's handsome and he looks more like I don't know, like artsy and confident. Like I do not picture a Russian man. I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Like I'm so sorry,
No, he's like your
Tessa.
typical like hipster,
Yeah, like the man I'm picturing has like at least a
like
beard, if not a goatee.
longer, like darker, like curly
Oh
hair, like
yeah, the hair's like
yeah.
messy. He has like these glasses that he wears sometimes, but like
But he
most of the
doesn't need
time,
them.
yeah, most of the time he's just like holding them with like the like little earpiece like in his mouth while he's like
Yeah,
using them to gesture at things. And that is Sergey to
that
me.
is yeah, exactly. And so yeah, Sergey. I mean, he wasn't a bad character. Like he didn't do anything wrong. Like
Yeah.
he was just
Hannah just outgrew
wrong
her
place,
crush on
wrong
him.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with Josh Bryant.
Well, there was. He was kind of a douche in the
Josh
movie,
Bryant was a little
but
bit of a douche, but Sergey probably is a little bit too without trying.
yeah.
Josh Bryant, yeah, that's fair. He's a little
He's
bit
the one who like when they were
rude.
in like the changing room, he like made out with her so that they could take pictures of her like in her towel.
Oh, I did forget about that part. Okay, so
So
yes, we
yeah,
do
he's
have
kind of a
problems with
dick.
Josh Bryant. Okay, so Sergey is not as bad as Josh Bryant. I feel like we're being a little harsh now.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's like the wrong guy. Like she had it wrong. That's not who she wanted to be with.
Right. And then we have Fox, and I love Fox.
Same.
There were times when, like I said, his internal monologue, like I got frustrated, but I think that's what was supposed to happen. Like
Hmm.
he was also frustrated. And so I think Tessa Bailey did a good job of like conveying that through his inner monologue. So he is our Michael Moskovitz from Princess Diaries. He is the one who has always seen Hannah's like inner beauty, and he knew all along exactly what she had to offer. And so when she finally does go through this transformation, he was just like, yeah, like I always knew you had it in you. Like I always knew
Yeah.
exactly what your potential was. And I thought that was awesome. Like he is down so bad for her.
And he has been since he met her, because his first impression of her is like when she stood up to Brendan, when Piper like accidentally caught dinner on fire. And so she was like taking on like this 6'4" man and like,
Yeah.
quit bullying my sister. And Fox was like, God damn.
Like, I'm gonna take her home.
You're coming home with me.
I'm a keeper. But yeah, he is definitely like a lot of his hesitations obviously are because Hannah is Piper's little sister and Brendan's his best friend. And I think that's what it started off with, but like he immediately got over that and he's just like, no, I'm not going to date her because I'm a bad person. And he's not, but he was flawed. But I do like that he acknowledged it.
Yes, definitely.
It just wasn't healthy the way
I
he
know.
tried to like resolve it.
He didn't have like the right coping mechanisms in place for sure.
Fox's family dynamic was so sad.
Yeah.
His mom, like I know Tessa Bailey was almost trying to make us like feel not sorry for her, but like empathize with her. But no, like she's a bad mom.
She is. And I think she probably like was trying her best and like was dealing with her own like generational trauma.
But like how terrible of her to like immediately at the age of 13 be like, yeah, you're gonna be like your dad, so we're just gonna go ahead and put some precautions in place here, so at least you're gonna be safe about it. And I feel like if he had just gotten like that love and support that he needed, and that they didn't like start, you know, sexualizing him as a young child, like he probably would have been way different.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, of course it's important to like discuss like safe sex practices with children. Like that's important, like educating your children, but that's not the way to go about it. You're not going to say, I know you're going to be a little man whore like your father, so I went ahead and
here's this jar full of one so you could buy some condoms.
Condom money, because you're going to be a little floozy. And he was like, Mom, terrible. I'm 13.
Yeah, and so then he was like, I guess I have to use these because everyone just expects it of me. And it's like, God, that is like, so sick.
Yeah, honestly, it's gross. And like,
it's disgusting.
We'll talk about it more towards the end because we have some like thought-provoking questions. But it really is a genuine like issue in society.
Yes.
So we'll get into that.
Poor Fox, honestly.
I know.
But I do love
dad like straight up abandoned him as a child too.
And like the one time he did go to see him, it was like awful.
Oh yeah. And Fox was like, I ain't
never coming back here again.
Yeah, he's like, he sucks. He makes me feel unloved and unappreciated.
It made me so sad for Fox. And like after that, like after he talked about like his mom like flinching every time she sees him and like his dad, the dynamic changes so much after that. And you're just like, you poor like baby, you are a victim.
Yeah, like he was not loved as a child.
And then he freaking like the one time he does think he finds love, and like he's being used as a hall pass, and like he just can't catch a break. Like he wanted to be so productive and he had all these plans, and then like it just goes up in flames because of how he perceives himself. Yes, because like he hated the reputation that he had like around all the people he grew up with, and he was trying so hard to get away from that. And like when he went to college, he was like, I have this girl who is interested in me and like loves spending time with me. Like, this is it. This is what I've been missing. And she's like, no, like I'm sleeping with you because you're hot. And my boyfriend said I could have a hall pass for you, which he didn't actually, because so Fox's like, it was his business partner.
Yeah, they were friends and business partners, and her boyfriend did not know that she was sleeping with Fox, and Fox did not know that she was dating his friend, which is bizarre to me. But But yeah, like she was
She's a
betraying
little
both
hoe.
men. Unfortunately, Fox kind of took the fall for it. Like, for some reason, people never blame their significant other. They blame the
Yeah,
person that, like, they
it
got
happened.
cheated on with. Anyway,
I don't know.
I
But
digress.
so some things that we really liked about the book. The first one is the texting at the beginning of the book. I love that, like, that was like their main form of communication, and like it really laid the groundwork for the whole book, kind of set the tone. And like you could even tell, like, when they were texting, like the love that they had for each other and like the comfort that they find in each other, because they both feel like they
Yeah.
can't turn to the people they've always talked to in the past.
I know because they both have like these insecurities that they're dealing with, but they both feel comfortable, like kind of showing those insecurities to each other, which is interesting because really they didn't know each other
They're
super well.
perfect
Like
strangers.
they developed this relationship over text, like basically after Hannah left Westport. But then the more they like confide in each other, it's becoming a genuine friendship, like over text, and they're like being vulnerable with each other. And sometimes they're even being a little bit flirty, and then they kind of like backtrack it.
They're like, oh shit.
Which is like so cute to me because it's like they're both so like into each other, but like low key afraid that the other was not into them.
Right.
Um, but I loved that so much. Like, and then also like how Hannah like relates so much to music, which we'll talk more about as well. How she would like describe her day with a song, and Fox like did that back, like that way that they bonded over something that was
That
so important to her.
made my heart so full.
It was very, very sweet. I
Because
loved it.
he understands her on such like a deep emotional level, and like doesn't even realize it. Like, because I feel like even Piper's like, yeah, Hannah's a little weirdo, and like we
Yes.
accept that, and he's just like, no, like that's
He's like, I
awesome,
get
like you're
this.
amazing.
And I feel like it's something that like he had never considered like using music as an outlet in that way until Hannah showed that to him. But when she did, he realized how much it like was therapeutic to him, and he started doing it on his own and like even in secret from her because it
Right.
was so meaningful to him.
It's just really nice.
It's very nice. The texts were like making me like giggle. It was
It's
just
like, oh my
like it felt
God.
like you were texting your crush in high school. Like it
Yes,
was
exactly.
so cute. Next thing for me, this is one of the major reasons I rate this book a 10 out of 10. The massage oil scene.
I was blushing.
So, first of all, it's kind of like two parts because originally, like part one is like him telling her, like, oh yeah, it's
I
massage
jerked
oil
off
that you're
this
smelling.
morning.
And yeah, and she's like, oh, because she's, like, I cannot be attracted to this man because we're supposed to be just friends and I am objectifying my friend. Like, she feels so guilty about it. But all along, that's his fucking plan. He's like trying to get her to objectify him to like prove to himself that
That
that's
he's
all
just a
he can
piece of
be.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, no, like that's what I am to women. They don't see me as a friend. Like I'm just going to show her that I am an object. And of course, Hannah's like, fuck no. But then when he follows her back and she is like, she's going to go use that massage oil. Like, she is like, I got to. And he's like, I know what you're
She's
doing.
like, our
Open the
prolonged eye
door.
contact is a bit too much for me.
Oh my God. It was like, I was blushing
When
so
he's like, yeah,
hard.
I can smell the oil. It's like,
I know. Can you
stop
imagine
it.
the embarrassment? But then she's a fucking baddie. He's like, open the door. And she does. And she's like in her bra and panties. And he's like trying to seduce her,
She's
trying
like,
to
I'm gonna
seduce
hold
her.
control of this situation.
Yes. And she's like, nope, I'm in control. Like,
I'm
I
in
do not want to
charge.
use you for your body. Like, you are enough. And he's like, no, I'm not. Like, let me like be an object to you. And she's like, no, it's freaking
That was queen
intense.
energy.
It was. And like it broke my heart whenever Hannah it like finally hits her and she just like stops like in her tracks and she is like, he is so damaged. Like, this is so much
Yes.
deeper of an issue than I thought. And
And
she,
when she just like holds him and
yeah,
like after he spills his feelings and stuff to her and like she literally
I
just stays there and holds him. I'm
know.
like, no one has ever loved you, you sweet boy.
I know because like he needed that so bad. He needed an
Oh,
intimacy that was not sexual. And he has not had that in his life, which is like, I can't even imagine like never having intimacy that's not sexual. Like that
yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. Like that's so unhealthy. But,
Right.
like that's what happened to him.
It's like just no one hugged you as a child and it shows.
Hey, and some of you guys out there, like, if that happened to you, like,
You
it
should
is
maybe
okay that that makes you sad because that should make you sad.
because that's not normal.
Yeah, we should acknowledge that, like, your feelings are valid and you probably should talk to
Intimacy
someone
is
about that.
okay if it's not sexual.
Yeah, you can just like cuddle.
So, okay, really quick, before the car scene, is that when Fox says all those terrible things to her?
Yes, that happens before they go to Seattle.
Yes, okay, it happens
Mhm.
bingo night.
Bingo night.
Yeah, we'll get to it later, but that part like kills me and I do want to talk about it.
Well, we can just talk about bingo night right now. Let's talk about
Yeah,
bingo
let's do
night.
it. So, bingo night, it's actually not something I liked, but I did like the resolution side of it on Hannah's
Hmm.
part. So Fox says some terrible, hurtful things to her, like made my stomach drop
Yeah.
hurtful.
Yeah, do you
And
ever like whenever you're reading something and something like really sad happens, it like literally makes your stomach drop and you get like that heavy feeling shoot through your
yes,
arm?
I'm just like, wow, that made me depressed.
Yeah.
Um,
You can feel it
so
immediately.
when Fox tells Hannah it's a good thing they never slept with each other because he would have just left her in the morning, I was just like hurt for Hannah. And like Hannah handled it so well
Yeah.
because she knew like it was just his defense mechanism.
Right.
And like, yes, it did hurt her, but she also knew that he didn't mean it. And so the second she gets out of the car to leave and like Fox starts chasing after her because he knew he fucked
Yeah.
up.
He was like
Like
immediately shit.
the fact that she forgave him but
Hmm.
then like set those boundaries because he was
Right.
like, let me make it up to you, like let me do this for you, and she was like, no,
Yeah, she's like, good night.
I'll
I'll see
give
you in
you
the
a
morning.
kiss and I will see you tomorrow. And like
Yeah.
that was powerful.
That was powerful. Hannah is such an empathetic person, and she is such a good communicator because
Ah,
that really hurt her feelings. And she was like, okay, the best thing to do is just remove myself from the situation
because
because
he
that
didn't
shit
mean it.
hurted. Yeah. And so she immediately gets out of the car. Yeah. She's like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave. And then whenever I'm glad he was immediately sorry because
That
like
was a
otherwise
terrible thing to say.
yeah, that would have been a bad way to leave things, but good. Luckily, he was immediately sorry. And so she's like, I know that you're sorry, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I do forgive you, but my feelings are hurt.
Yeah, because earlier that night, like at the bingo hall, like he had been so vulnerable with her. He like held her hand under the table. They ended up like making out because, again, they have this major chemistry, but
But
he puts up those guards again.
the second Hannah tried to talk to him about it and be like, even if we had slept together, we would still have this conversation. And he was like, why?
Yeah.
Why do we need to have this conversation?
Because he can't fathom that she cares about him beyond
Yeah.
having sex. He's like, that does not make sense. I only have one thing to offer to you, and it's physical, like
Physical
sexual
attraction.
gratification.
Yeah.
And she's like, that is not true. I want to be with you. I love spending time with you. And he's like, that like literally can't be possible.
Yeah.
And she's like, he is so damaged. So of course, what I didn't like is like Fox being mean to Hannah, but what I did like is what that meant for their
The way
relationship.
Hannah handled it in that development. Yes.
Yeah.
Because then they go to Seattle the next day. And I
Mhm.
think that is like a big turning point in the story
Oh,
because
100%.
Fox makes breakfast for her. Like she comes out looking like a fucking bombshell. And he is just like, I can't. Like,
Yeah. He's
like
like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to make me believe that
he's
we can
like, and
have a
it
real
works.
relationship. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, he still is like a little bit guarded. Like at the recording studio, she's like, Fox, if you're jealous, just say that you're jealous. And he's like, fine, I'm jealous.
He's like, yeah, I am.
And she's like, thank you.
But wait, what?
And she's like, okay, but I'm going to play it cool though, because I don't want to scare him. But she's like, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No, I love that turning point because like he realizes like, okay, like there ain't no coming back from this. So
Yes.
might as well just
and then
roll with
finally
it.
at the end of that night, he lets his guard down all the way. And he takes her to the sound garden. And he was like, I wanted to bring you here last summer. I have had it bad for you since I fucking met you. I've not been able to stop thinking about you.
It's like, but I didn't
since
want to
you left.
expose myself.
Yes. And it leads to the most beautiful
10
scene.
pages of absolute steamy content. It's not even that cringy. You know, Tessa
No.
Bailey, you did this one pretty good. There was a couple things I'm like, we probably should have worded it differently, but like it was good.
Yeah, because like for us, we mentioned this with It Happened One Summer. Like we don't like it when you when you call the pussy it or thing.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
That little thing is what? No.
Like what is it? An alien? No.
Like I'm not sure what thing we're like referring to.
Yeah, I don't like because thing just sounds like you're scared to say something dirty. Like it sounds like you're a middle schooler, which we know Fox is a very experienced lover.
Yeah, it's like you've got her naked. Just
yeah, like just say what it is, please. Yeah. Anyway, we've already kind of talked about that, but like that's really the only thing in that scene that I was like,
the fucking car scene. Yeah, it is top tier.
It's beautiful.
And it's so beautiful.
It's romantic. It's like storming around them, which is like
they have like their fucking like notebook kiss in the rain and like
yeah. If they make like this one a movie as well, it will be a cinematic masterpiece.
She even says like this is like a main character like thing that happens, like her being kissed in the rain.
Yes.
Happens in Princess Diaries too.
Oh my god, yes. And we'll digest that a little bit more as well. But yeah, like this scene is like the climax of the story. Like this is it for them. This is the turning point.
Which, you know what I really liked about this too is that like a lot of her books aren't necessarily slow burns, but like I think she did this, like obviously she did this on purpose, like because Fox is so dependent on like sexual relationships and the fact that like Tessa Bailey kind of waited till like the end of the book for them to actually get together. Yeah. Like I think like that is just such a good like symbolic representation of like their relationship. And how like, you know, she didn't let him in like intimately like that until she felt confident that he wasn't necessarily like viewing himself as just like a sexual object to her. And that he was able to like be very open and like accept his feelings towards her. And so like I love the way she did that.
Yeah, because Hannah was like, whenever I sleep with this man, it'll be us making love. It won't be like us fucking.
Right.
And so she waited for that moment.
I loved that.
It was beautiful. It was like the payoff we all needed.
Yeah, like the tensions were so high. That whole book.
I know, but I loved it because it was like that was what was going on like emotionally between them as well. Because Fox like couldn't like fully give himself over to her until he laid it all out there. And he was like, I love you and I have loved you and I want to be with you. And she was like, great. Okay, let's bone.
Cute. We talked a little bit about like music being like a big motivator for Hannah, but I do love that it is just one giant playlist. Like
it's so cute. It sets the vibes. It makes it feel more like a movie too.
Yes. And like, I think I've talked to you about this before, but like, it reminds me of Nick and Nora's Ultimate Playlist. And in that movie, like music is like the main focus. And like, basically there's a song for every scene in this movie. And that's like the vibes I was getting from this because like, basically Hannah thinks about situations in terms of like what music fits best with it. Like her life is just basically one giant movie soundtrack.
Yeah. And like that's what she wants to do so badly in her career and that's what she's working toward. And eventually like she has her big break. Like she makes the soundtrack for this movie that they're filming in Westport, which is what she wanted career-wise. And that's so important to her.
Yes. And I love that the sea shanties like play such a big role because like with Piper in the first book, Piper like always had that connection to Henry and like
because she could remember him.
Yeah, because she could remember him, wanted to make him proud, wanted to like continue that legacy. But like Hannah struggled with that so hard. And I love that the way that she was able to connect with her father was through the music that he left for them.
Yeah, because that's such a big part of her life anyway. So it was just so perfect. Another thing that's like that Tessa Bailey just chef's kiss in this book. The miscommunication like resolution in this book is perfect because Fox had been, again, like he's hesitant about like actually being with Hannah because he thinks that he's asking too much of her to ask her to like come live with him. He's like, I can't like have her give up her career. And like Hannah's like, no, like I want to be with you. But anyway, so they have like this huge thing, and Fox is like, I can't do this to you. And Fox, when he realizes that he fucked up, he's like, I have lost her. Like, I fucked up so bad, like she's gone. And he frantically is like ready to chase after her, but he walks into the apartment. She's just sitting on the floor with the record player. She's like, oh, you're home.
Which I think shows like such maturity on Hannah's side. She's like, you asshole, like I'm not gonna leave you. Like, what do you think we are? Like 10 years old? Like, no, we're gonna talk about this.
But like seriously, Fox has like the emotional, like as far as like romantic maturity, it's really not like something that he's used to, is being able to like have a loving relationship with like trust and like communication. So he's like, oh, for sure, she cannot handle me. She has left me. And Hannah's like, no.
She's like, what have I been telling you this whole time?
And so that for him it's just like so symbolic.
I love that.
She's like, of course I'm still here.
Because if Hannah had pulled what Piper did in the first book and just dipped out to California, Fox would have been like, I respect your decisions, like whatever.
And that
he's like, that shows me that you don't actually want to be with me. And like, why would you?
And he would never love again.
No.
And it's so funny. Because like in the first book, yeah, Brendan is the one with like the emotional maturity and Piper is not. And in the second book, Hannah's the one with the emotional maturity. So it's kind of like a role reversal from the first.
Right. Yeah, but I love that.
I love it too, because it just shows like how much they do love each other. And like Hannah knows too, because of the record player. Like he has the record player and the collection of records, which when they were texting at the beginning of the book, he was like, so what is your type? And she was like, oh, someone who makes me laugh on my worst days. And of course, like he needs a cabinet full of records and something to play them on. And so from that moment, Fox started a collection because he wanted to be that man for her.
Like subconsciously too. Like I think he was just like, if I could even have just like a sliver of her happiness, like I'll be content with it. And so I'm going to do this. And like, I think that's the whole reason he bought those, because like he obviously didn't think he would ever like have the chance to do that, but like that was like his one connection to her. He's like, this is what would make her happy, and so I'm gonna give that to myself just so I have a piece of her here.
I didn't even consider it that way, but that's so true, because for him it's like, she lives in LA, I'll never see her again, except maybe like on the holidays if she visits Piper.
Yeah,
he was like, I'll never have her, but I can have this piece of her.
Yeah, that made me so sad.
Sweet. Oh my God.
Like he was just so content to live like a subpar life with no love in it, because he had that one piece of Hannah. Yeah, and he was like, gonna make it happen.
He had been like celibate too. Like he was not even interested in like being with another person physically, because he was so emotionally attached to Hannah and felt like it was a betrayal.
Yeah.
Even though they were not in a relationship, he was like, I value her and respect her so much that I cannot even like physically be with another person right now.
Fox is just a whole, like he built different.
He is even
though he has like a lot of flaws, like like subconsciously his love for her was so beautiful.
It was. And like he worked through those flaws though. Like their relationship was so important to him that he worked through them.
Oh God, I love this book. I love this book.
I love this book and I love this man.
And then the epilogue, like the epilogue was great. And like it wrapped everything up so beautifully. And like, I love that it really didn't focus on Brendan and Piper. Like, it was like the Fox and Hannah show. And I love that for them.
Yes. But then, of course, they still like made a nod to, yes, like they're still super close with Brendan and Piper, of course.
Right.
And like they came over to like hang out, and their family was just one big happy family.
How cute.
It was very cute. And also just like the fact that
he still loves her so much.
And yes, and like he was like so protective of her. Like whenever she got home, she was like, I need you immediately. And he was like, yep, I'll be right there. Loved it.
So there's not like a ton of things we didn't like about the book. Some that I've already kind of talked about is just like a little bit of repetitiveness from Fox's insecurities. But again, I do understand why they did that, because basically that is what was constantly playing in Fox's head.
Yeah.
And like he had to just continually remind himself that he was not good enough for her, because if he didn't, then he would lose the plot and like do something he would regret, which I don't agree with his insecurities. Obviously, trauma does different things to people, but I do like that when Hannah set those boundaries, like he did eventually stop, because for a while there, he was just like, no, Hannah, like, let me do this for you. Let me show you that I'm a piece of shit. Like, let me like touch you so that you know not to like be with me. But he also respected Hannah's boundaries when she was like, I'm not going to do this with you.
Right. Yeah, he definitely like, it was a little bit repetitive, but then you think about like, well, that's pretty realistic, because if someone is working through something like that, like it's going to take time, and it's going to take like constant reassurance until they realize that, oh, this person really is here for me. And so in that way, I think it is realistic. But of course, it's frustrating. It would be frustrating in real life,
because it's frustrating for him, I'm sure.
Yeah. And like if you were trying to like love someone through that, like you yourself would probably feel a bit frustrated. Like, why can't you see yourself the way I see you? So it makes sense to me. But at times that can be just like a little bit repetitive to read, because it's like, I want the happy ending. I want the resolution. So it does kind of suck as a reader whenever it's like dangled in front of your face and pulled away. Another thing that we didn't really like in the second book was like Piper's character was a little uncharacteristic of like how she was portrayed in the first book. So like in the first book, like she was just as much of a supportive sister to Hannah as Hannah was to her. And it feels like in the second book, she was not making time for Hannah while she was in Westport, which I know she like had Brendan's parents over and was like entertaining them. But like,
Hannah was like going through it.
Yeah, Hannah was going through it. And then like whenever they did hang out, Hannah was literally helping Piper bond with her in-laws, even though like Piper had been like brushing her off the whole time she was in Westport.
It almost made me feel like Piper takes advantage of Hannah being like the backbone of their family. Because it's like, if you think back to like the first book, like Hannah bails her out of jail. Hannah moves to a different state. Like Hannah's the one who keeps the bar running when Piper has like a mental breakdown, and like just does it without even like thinking about it, because that's Hannah. And so like whenever it comes time for like Hannah to need Piper, Piper's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
And like Piper's basically just like, no, stay away from this dude. Like what are you doing? Like nothing, like she's not listening, like she's not supportive. And like that just sucks to see it, because Hannah would have been there for Piper regardless of any decision she made.
Like Piper cannot be a supporting actress when it's needed of her. And that kind of goes back to like Hannah's whole thing that we'll talk a little bit more about. But it's like, okay, Hannah was the supporting actress for Piper, but now when Hannah's the leading lady, where's her sister?
Right.
She's not there.
And like, I'm sure that's not what Tessa Bailey intended, but it just, I don't know, it felt like her character almost like regressed, because
it did. It felt out of place to me. I was like, that's not Piper. And then and same with Brendan.
Yeah, wait, where was Brendan?
Where the fuck was he when he wasn't pressuring Fox?
Yeah, like we literally only saw him when he was like, yeah, get over yourself and you're going to take over the Della Ray. And Fox is like, no, dog, like I'm good. And he's like, well, I'm going to keep pushing you because that's what I do. I'm a pusher.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, because like with Fox, like in the first book, Fox is basically the one who tells Brendan to like get his head out of his ass. And like it was really crazy coming from him because he's not like a person who knows much about love, but he knows Brendan. And so he was able to be like, man, like, this is what you want. And like, this is not just like a fling. So just freaking go for it. And then you have Brendan who's like, if you touch Hannah, I'm going to kill you.
And it's so funny because in the first book, whenever Fox was giving Brendan that advice, it was all coming from a place of how he felt for Hannah. Yes. Because he was like, oh, well, every woman's different, but just do something meaningful to her. Like, I don't know, there's a record convention in Seattle. Like, I don't know, maybe Hannah would like that. I don't know.
But like, it's like besides the point, but like, maybe.
But like, I don't know. Maybe call her and see if she's busy this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
obsessed with Hannah from the get.
And I just feel like Piper and Brendan were just like off in their own little world, and they're just like, yeah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. And then it's so funny that Brendan is like, don't even touch Hannah. Like, you couldn't possibly care about her, when literally in the first book, Fox was showing every sign of caring about Hannah.
Yeah, like took her to a convention, like left her like freaking vinyls that she wanted, like, and everyone was just like, you freaking dirty dog, you.
Everyone's like, quit trying to sleep with her, and he's like, I'm
not
her.
And like that made me so sad too. Like, fuck his coworkers, honestly. Like, they're just like, you're telling me you're passing up on like sleeping with some hot chick, and Fox is like, yeah, dude, like, I don't want to do that. And they're like, are you sick?
I know, it's so gross to me because like, if there are men who think that way, it's like, of course I would never pass up on an opportunity to sleep with someone who's attractive. Then there's something wrong with you. Because like,
yeah, it's like
not,
he's like, trying to change and you're making it very hard.
Yeah. And like, believe it or not, like, he does have feelings, and he's like, yeah, like, I'm not interested because I have feelings for someone. And they're like, what the fuck?
That's literally not even possible.
They're like, I hate my wife. What the fuck?
Sanders. Your wife's a bitch, man.
Yeah, it's like, man, my wife makes me want to kill myself every day. I don't know what you're talking about.
Why would you try to lock it down, man?
Yeah.
That's on you, buddy.
Disgusting.
So there is some symbolism in the book as well. Like we talked about with the leading lady supporting actress thing. I kind of liked it because, like I said, Hannah's life is one big movie in her eyes because she's a little bit out of touch with reality. I don't know.
Because she's not like other girls.
She is not like other girls.
But in a good way, in a lovable way.
And so, like, she starts off, like, I mean, the first part of the book is her, like, being very self-conscious and, like, not overly confident. And she's, like, trying to bring stuff up to Sergey. And she's like, but if you hate it, like, I totally understand because I'm an idiot. So it's like...
And then just trips and falls and hits her head on the
and then, like, just eats shit on a bus. And so I really loved seeing the progression of her, like, talking about, like, what leading ladies do and then slowly becoming, like, what she always envisioned a leading lady is. But she couldn't have done that without Fox because Fox is like, what are you even talking about? Like, you've been like this the whole time. You just needed to be more confident.
Exactly. And it's ironic because the same applies to Fox, but he can't see it that way.
No.
But yeah, like, that's such a good, like, symbol throughout the book, as well as, like, the whole, like, soundtrack to her life. Again, it symbolizes that her life is one big movie and she is actually the leading lady. Like, it is, very, it feels like reading this book feels like watching a movie.
Yes.
Which, obviously books and movies are both like stories, but usually when I'm reading a book, I'm not like considering it to have like movie vibes. And this one, it was like, oh no, absolutely, you're watching a rom-com right now because of like these elements that Tessa Bailey incorporated. And so I think that's
what she's so good at doing.
Yeah, like, it's a really creative way to write her book. And I think it played the part that she wanted it to. It was effective.
Yeah, it was really good. So something new that we're going to start doing is coming up with almost some like book club styled questions to go over, because there are a lot of like aspects of the book that we want to focus on and like kind of relate those to like real life situations. And so we're going to start doing this with every episode in place of the synopsis. And it's also a good way for you guys to kind of get involved with it too, because these are, genuine things that we've thought about as we read these books.
Yeah, and we want you guys to like share your opinions with us too about like these questions. You can email us at thesisterswarden@gmail.com and definitely like let us know what you think about these conversations because I think they're important.
Yes. So the first question is, what do you think plays the biggest role in Fox's perception of masculinity? And how do you think men in today's society are affected by these things? So that is like an ongoing theme throughout this book, is that from a young age, Fox was over sexualized, and like basically there was a stigma against him that he was going to be a player and that like that was all he was ever going to be. And so even like his teachers were like, oh yeah, watch out for that Fox, like he is going to break your heart. And his mom even calls him her little heartbreaker. And so like things were just like against him this whole time. And I think because that was like hammered into him from such a young age, that is what Fox's perception of masculinity became. Like if he's passing up on sleeping with these women, if he is, not providing that pleasure to other women, then like what even is he as a man? Like if he can't do that, then what does he have to offer?
Right, because like especially because he is a very conventionally attractive man, which plays a large role in this like narrative that's been pushed on him. And so like the men in his life, like his coworkers who maybe are less conventionally attractive, and they're like, man, if I looked like you, like I'd be eating that shit up, like I'd be sleeping with a different woman every weekend, like. And so like other men's perception of masculinity as well like further like pushes this, like snowballs this. And
which
I think like that's a real thing. Like locker room talk,
yes,
for lack of a better term. It's like, yeah, like of course I'd hit that, I'd tap that man because I'm a manly man.
which is so disgusting too, because basically what they're saying is if they were hot, they would not have settled down with their wives and they'd be players.
Yeah. It's like, man, if I looked like you, like fuck my wife, she's disgusting. I wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. Like you need
it's like psychological that's terrible.
Help. Yeah, and of course I am not saying that every man thinks this way. This is very much like what I think we as society have termed toxic masculinity. Like,
yes.
And it does affect every man in society, but not every man obviously thinks
acts on it.
Views.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it is like if a man does like stand up for themselves and say like, no, like I respect women and like I love a woman, and like he's called a simp or a pussy or like, he's seen as less of a man.
And I unfortunately think that like media plays a big role in that as well. Like you see it on TikTok a lot, and like TikTok is toxic as fuck.
It is.
And so like you'll see like this super hot dude and like everybody is fucking like simping hard over this man and like going absolutely feral for like these men. And then the second they like settle down, like, oh, well, it's not going to last because like, how he is, like he'd never settle down, or like, I don't know why he'd be with somebody like that. Like, do you see how he looks? And it's like, that is so
disrespect that I see on
disgusting.
TikTok, especially with mixed weight couples.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Like Alicia.
Alicia. Yes. And I cannot remember her husband's name, but Alicia, is it McCarvel? I can't remember her last name.
Alicia Carvel.
So wonderful, bright spot on my For You page.
She and her husband are incredible.
They're hilarious. They're such a cute couple. And they're literally just out there living their lives, man. And because they're a mixed weight couple, Alicia is a plus size woman and her husband is
like a bodybuilder.
Muscular bodybuilder type. People are just absolutely disgusting in the comments, disrespectful, saying like, there's no way he's faithful to her. Why would he be with a woman?
She must have been like hot when they first got married. Like,
Alicia actually used to be a bodybuilder. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but she used to be a bodybuilder. And she was actually much less healthy than she is today.
And because it's such a negative mindset. And like,
yes. And she talks about that. She literally points out to people that like, I used to be so skinny to the point of being unhealthy. And people were like, no, obviously you were healthier then. And she's like, I'm
No.
literally telling you I was not. And they just cannot fathom it. So that's like a whole other layer of it, is like the misogyny, towards women also contributes to this like type of
like if you're hot, like you can't, like, and I say this with quotations, you can't like date down.
Yes.
But that's not what he's doing. But it's like that is what they're basically trying to say, is that like if you're hot and you date anybody who is also not like the ideal like woman that people have created in society, like what are you even doing?
Yes, people cannot fathom it. And women do this too. They'll be in the comments being disrespectful, like, why are you with her? Like, you could be with me, baby. Like, no.
Yeah, it's just
because
like
no one likes you, or
you're not helping anything. No, and it's so yeah, like you see that so much in media, and it's so disgusting, and it makes me really, really sad for, people who are like actually in love with each other. And like you see that a lot in this book too, because they're just like, Hannah, like you're such like a girl next door, like what are you doing with somebody like him?
Yeah,
and it's like,
they're like, come on, you could settle down with someone who treats you right. And it's like, why do you
think you wouldn't treat her right? Like,
yeah, because Fox even says like, I can't be with you, Hannah, because I could not live with hearing all the talk about people like just waiting for me to fuck up and cheat on you. Like, I could not listen to that.
Yeah,
or put you through so that. Sad. And so it's like something that
fuck society
affects people and their relationships, and that
it's terrible.
Yeah.
Second question is, would you describe yourself as a leading lady or a supporting actress? And who in society do you consider to be a leading lady? So I think that's a kind of like a loaded question.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like the idea of being like a leading lady, like main character energy, like I feel like is not always necessarily like a good thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it definitely it can be unhealthy. Like, we don't want you to be like a narcissist or anything.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like for myself, I
think I'm a supporting.
I would describe myself as a supporting actress as well. But it's interesting because like, I think the only thing that makes me say that is because I'm like, well, my life isn't like interesting enough to be considered like a main character story. So I'm like, I'm boring in my mind. So I'm like, that makes me a supporting actress. But like,
it doesn't.
But yeah, like when you think about it, like you are the main character in your own story. So doesn't that automatically make everyone kind of the leading lady of their own story?
Yeah, and it's like when I think of like myself, like I think of myself as a supporting character because like I'm definitely the one to like hype somebody else up about something, but like don't always necessarily get that from anyone else.
Yes. And it's like I will hype people up like left and right, but then whenever it comes time for me in that position, I'm like, I don't know. Like
it's like, why would I do that? It's like
I'm not cut
I
out for
literally
that.
just like made someone do something they weren't comfortable with because they needed that like confidence, but then I don't have that for myself sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to like work on like positive self-talk and stuff. That's something that's like been kind of an ongoing thing for me, is like kind of changing the way that I talk to myself, which I think a lot of people, their insecurities kind of lead them to be like kind of their own worst critic and a little bit of a bully to themselves, which can decrease your confidence.
And so that's where I feel like the main character supporting actress thing gets a little iffy, because it's like you start comparing yourself to people who like do live that like main character type life. And I feel like that can be very unhealthy, because it's like just because they are living a different life than you are doesn't mean you're not getting that same fulfillment that you need.
The second part of the question, who in society do you consider to be a leading lady? For me, it's people who are like centered like in media somehow, like influencers or celebrities. Like those are leading ladies in my mind. But it's like, what makes them a leading lady? Like it's just the fact that they're getting like all this attention,
right,
and support, because it's like, well, yeah, like that's part of their job, I guess. But also, like, I think what we've kind of learned as the years go on with like how
That
long
it's not all
social
it's
media has
cracked up to
been at
be.
the forefront. Yeah, it's like their lives, the way that they portray them online are often not actually like that in reality.
Like, I bet I'm getting more for fulfillment out of my life than they are with theirs because of the stuff that they have to deal with
Yeah.
like what comes with them being like popular.
There's definitely a good chance that, yeah, like you might have a more like sound mental health than someone who is quote unquote popular or a leading lady because they have to kind of then shoulder that extra, like everyone's like giving them opinions about their own life and they're like, well, this is all like negative, this is all criticism, so it might be like negatively affecting their mental health.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a very like dangerous line to like cross there because it's like
Yeah.
you shouldn't compare yourself to someone else because they are living like a different life.
Yeah. And it's also like, it's weird to me that like people want to be famous because I try to think about like myself in that situation. And it's like the lack of privacy, I think would be such an uncomfortable thing for me. And like, I can't even imagine like how uncomfortable that would be. So it's interesting to me that people kind of seek that out. But it's probably just like a difference in personality, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting for sure.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of psychological like analysis that
Yeah,
people who are qualified to do that kind of thing could do, but not me.
Not us.
It ain't us.
We just have opinions and they may not be correct.
So our next question is about the epilogue. So why do you think that every happily ever after epilogue results in them getting married and having children? And do you think there's an undertone of societal expectations in rom-com endings that focus on a nuclear family?
Yes. I do.
Short answer, yes.
Yes, I do. So I've been thinking about this question a lot since last night when we wrote it.
A long time. You could say like at least 10 hours.
For sure. So I do like the epilogue aspect of a book. Like I love seeing everything tied up and I love seeing that they do get their happily ever after. I just think it's weird that every single happily ever after ends up with them like doing like a traditional lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because it's like you'll read some crazy books about like the most unstable like living environments and like the most unstable like maybe toxic couples that like end up staying together and then it's like but they get their happily ever after and now they have 5 kids and they got
and it's like are their kids okay?
And it's like I feel like maybe that wasn't the play because like they're kind of dealing with a lot like when we left off there like some stuff wasn't like resolved and like with rom-coms it's a little bit different because normally after you have like that miscommunication trope like there is like the resolution and they do live happily ever after and so I feel like it is like heavily based on like societal norms that everybody when they meet like the love of their life the next natural progression is to get married and to have children but like that's not everyone's lifestyle and I feel like they should do better about like adding some variety to it because not everyone wants kids like not everyone wants to have like that nuclear family.
Exactly. And that's something that like because me personally kids are not on my radar anytime soon and it's like maybe in the future like we're talking way out like maybe but it's like for me like the way I picture my life right now kids are not in it and so and I know a lot of women feel the same way. And for me, like, I did want to get married. I am like happily married. So, like, that part, yes, I did want to get married.
Same.
But like, some people might not even want to do that. Like, maybe they just want to be with that person, but not have like a legal
the expectations
marriage.
of marriage.
Yeah. Like, who knows? And so it's like interesting that there's no variety in happily ever after. So, like, well, obviously they got married and obviously they have 2.5 kids. And it's like, I just don't know about that because I feel like women already kind of deal with that kind of pressure anyway. And so like to have like no representation of like any other type of happily ever after is just a little bit disheartening to me because also like I hate the pregnancy trope and I know you do
Same.
too.
Yeah.
But another thing is like in epilogues when it's like, oh yeah, all of a sudden they have children. I'm like, whoa,
Like, okay.
ew, gross.
Well, and like it makes me think of too, like, especially with like the insta love type tropes, it's like you get to the epilogue and it's like 3 months later and they're like engaged. And
I
it's like,
know.
I don't understand it. It's like,
Like that's
what about
not
like them like starting a life together? What about them like, maybe like actually dating or like living with each other or something like that? Like,
yeah.
I
Or
just
like
think
maybe
it's
they took a
so,
dope ass vacation together and they're somewhere really romantic.
yeah. It's just like, like with the Spanish love deception, it's like, they've known each other, but they didn't actually fall in love with each other until they went to Spain.
Mhm.
And they get back and he immediately is like, yeah, I want you to like move in with me and
Yeah.
like all this shit. And then they have their miscommunication and then they get back together and then it's like 6 months later and they're like married.
Which we talked about that like when we covered the book, but like, yeah, they are such an emotionally unstable couple.
Yeah.
Which I can't wait to read The American Roommate Experiment
So
because
good. So much
yeah,
better.
yes. And so I can't wait to read it and discuss that one. But yeah, like for me, the Spanish love deception was not it. I was like, this is not realistic to me. It was not cute. It was not cute to me. I was like, this is not going to result in a good, healthy start to a
Yeah.
marriage. Maybe they'll stay together, but like they're gonna have to work through some shit
Yeah.
because
And
that's
it's
not
like,
healthy.
you just had like the world's worst like miscommunication to the point where like someone fled to a different state. And
To
it's
be fair, he
like,
was visiting his dying dad.
no, I know, but like not even that. Like with like or it happened one summer. Like she
Oh yeah,
left. Like she
yeah.
just left. It's
Mhm.
like, what makes you think like 3 months is gonna make a difference? What if she gets
Yeah.
scared again? She's just gonna leave. Like, I don't
Because they
know.
were like, I'm so sorry, baby. I fucked up. And they're it's like, oh, it's okay, baby. Let's get married. Okay.
Like, let's get married. That is the next natural progression that makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No. How about get to know each other, perhaps? I don't know.
Yeah. And so I think that is like the reason why it's so unrealistic is because like with rom-coms, a lot of times, like there is that insta love. Like someone just meets a handsome stranger and they fall in love over the course of like 3 months. Like, and that's fine, but just be in a committed relationship for a little bit. See how
Yeah.
it goes. Maybe
No.
experience some life struggles together before you decide to get legally married.
I would just like love to see a book that transpires over the course of like years. And that's what we're going to do this book eventually, but that's what I like about people we meet on vacation is that like
Mm-hmm.
this book takes place,
Ooh.
it's like a friends to lovers type thing. And so it's taken place over the course of like 10 years.
Yeah.
And I love that shit.
I love that
Um
too because it's like, okay, that makes sense to me. That's something that I can fathom as a
yeah,
person in reality.
right. It's not just like, yeah, I've lived next door to this person. I've watched them through my window for the past
Yeah.
year. Never talked to him though, but we're getting married next month.
And like, do not get me wrong. I do
Like I'm still gonna
absolutely
eat
fuck
that
with a
shit
book.
up.
Yeah, like like those like marriage of convenience books where it's like they
I
fall in love
love
after
that
they get married.
shit.
I love that. I love that. But it's like I do have to like suspend my disbelief a little bit because it's the same to me as reading a fantasy novel. Like
It's
it's not
listen,
real.
it's not the same if it's a mafia novel, you know? Like that's
Like,
different.
well,
That's
that's not
different.
real. That's made up. The mafia doesn't exist.
The mafia does exist and the marriage of convenience. I don't know why, but I am willing to overlook that in those particular
No,
situations, but not
same.
in a rom-com.
Same, because it's like a rom-com is supposed to be more about like your average Joe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, how am I supposed to like believe this? Because it's like, hey, frickin' Aaron and Lena, they were just like office
Like you
coworkers.
hated each other
And,
a month ago.
and it's like, here's your most average people. And they're like, yes, immediately I'm in love.
also he's a surprise billionaire, and she's like, bet we're definitely
She's like,
doing
okay,
this.
well, you should have led with that, baby.
Like, where have you been?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's whatever.
Anyways, we just want to see more variety in the epilogues
Yeah,
and
that's
maybe
all
a
I'm
little bit
asking.
more like if we're going to be like
Maybe like
super
less
unrealistic.
children and like
Yeah. Less children, I think like guess what? Children, they're fine. They're great if you have them, but like I don't have them and I don't want to
I
read about them
don't
every
care
time.
about them.
Like, yeah, like you guys, you have plenty of books where they end up having kids, and that's great. But where's my
I
representation?
want, yeah, like I want to
Where's
see
the
people
dog
like
mom
me.
epilogues? Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
Um, so next question is what do you think Hannah or no, sorry, why do you think Hannah felt guilty about not having her own memories of Henry?
yeah, that's a tough question too, because like part of it, I think, is because Piper was old enough to be able to remember some things about Henry, but Hannah couldn't. There was probably a little bit of a,
Like resentment.
yes, a resentment and an envy that came with that, which
Mhm.
probably she felt guilty about because it's like, well, why should I wish that my sister has no memories of our dead father? Because that's fucked up. So that probably led to some feelings of guilt.
Yeah. I mean, you
Um,
see this a lot too. I'm going to reference TikTok again, but like you see a lot of people who like will talk about like being in like the dead dad club, which is sad.
yeah.
Um and like they're all kind of in the same boat where it's like I don't really know anything about him, but it's like I miss him, but also I don't
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know who this person is. And I feel
Yeah.
like that would be so hard to like come to terms with. And
Right.
like I do like that they eventually connected, you know, through music and she was able to see the love that he had for their family, but I also don't think it's wrong if she never did find that connection because
Yes.
yes, he is her father, but also like that's a perfect stranger to her. And so I don't like her mom obviously doesn't want to think about it and like never really made it a big part of their life. And like maybe if she had, she would have that connection with him, but it just wasn't like an important thing to their mom to like pass on to them.
That's the thing too, is like they grew up like not ever hearing anything from their mom about it. But then whenever Hannah meets Opal, and Opal is always telling her all the stories about Henry, and Hannah immediately is uncomfortable because
Yeah.
she feels like,
She like doesn't want to
ah,
see
I,
Opal.
yeah. And she's like, I know I'm supposed to have these emotions, but I don't. And then she feels bad about that, which is like, I mean, I understand where it's coming from, but it's not
And
necessary.
I also think that's why Hannah and Opal have such a different relationship than Piper and Opal.
Yeah.
Because, like, with Piper, she's able to see, like, aspects of herself, but also aspects of her father in Opal. And that, like,
Mhm.
ties her to him. And she was a really big part of It Happened One Summer. But in Hook, Line, and Sinker, we only see Opal once. And it's when she gives Hannah Henry's music.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that is huge as well because like Hannah doesn't have that tie like Piper does. And so it's not going to be like a leading thing in her book because it's not really like an important aspect of like who she is. Like she doesn't have anything she's trying to like remember or like reconcile with.
Yeah. But then it's so sweet that whenever like Fox sings that song for her so she can hear it and she realizes how much love Henry had for her and her family, like it means
Because
the world to her to like
and
know
like
that.
I think it's also special that Fox sang it to her because I think she can feel the love he has for her
Mhm. Oh, stop. That's so
by
sweet.
him like singing those songs. I don't know. I just
No, you're
it's
right.
I feel like Hannah's guilt, like it's brought on by herself and like her comparing herself to Piper. And I
Hmm.
think that comes back to like her like self-confidence thing. I don't feel
Yeah.
like she necessarily should have to feel like guilty about not knowing
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, it makes sense that she has those feelings, but they're not like feelings that she deserves to have.
No.
And I'm glad that she's able to like reconcile them.
Yeah. But I also think that kind of brings us to the next question about Hannah's family. And so why do you think Hannah never thinks of her mom and stepfather during this book? In the first book, it's evident that Piper thinks of them a lot. So why do you think or like what do you think this says about Hannah's relationship with them?
Yeah, so to me, that kind of signifies that Hannah is a much more independent person
Mm-hmm.
because, like, she, at the time that this book takes place, she is still living in their home because, like, they are able to financially support her. They're just very well off financially. And so that's like the type of dynamic their family has. So she is still
Yeah.
living with them in LA at the time, but she doesn't rely on them the way that Piper does. Like Piper would spend money irresponsibly when she lived in LA. She did
Mm-hmm.
not have her own job or make her own money. Whereas Hannah,
Use
she,
her connections to get a
yeah,
job.
she used her connections to get a job, but then also didn't want anyone to know whose daughter she was. So the only person who knew, I think, was Sergey. But
Mm-hmm.
he didn't treat her any differently because she was like,
No.
look, I want to like
I think he honestly
move
probably
forward.
forgot.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, I mean, fine, you whatever. But she was like, I want to succeed on my own and be this independent person. And she had told Piper in Hook, Line, and Sinker that she was even thinking of moving into her own place when she returned to
Mm-hmm.
California, which of course didn't end up happening because she and Fox fell in love. But I just think, is a much more independent person.
No, and also like I feel like obviously her relationship with her stepfather is going to be way different than Piper's is because like that's the only dad Hannah's ever known.
True.
And so like it's just like normal for her. Whereas like Piper has like kind of a hard time like reconciling the two. And like she does,
Mhm.
I don't think she necessarily has like a good relationship with her stepfather just because she kind of acted out.
Yeah, she
Um,
did.
and like Hannah is just like, yeah, whatever, like that's my dad, whatever. But like I think her relationship with her mom compared to Piper's is so different too. Cause it's
Yeah.
like Piper loves her mom and like talks about her a lot and like just holds her into a very high regard. But Hannah does not mention them like a single time in this
Hmm.
book. And so like I think it's kind of the same with Fox. Like he has like a very weird relationship like with his parents, and so does Hannah. And I think that's why they do end up relying on each other so much because they don't have anyone else to turn to. With
Yeah.
like Piper and Brendan being together, like they don't have those great relationships with their parents, and so they found
Yeah.
like
And
comfort
like,
in each other.
and Piper and Brendan were so like wrapped up in each other that they weren't like fully supportive of their sister and friend anymore. Like
Right.
that was kind of lacking for Hannah and Fox. And so that's another reason why they like turn to each other so much for comfort and
Mm-hmm.
friendship. And obviously it ended up working out because
Yeah.
they fell in love, and that's very sweet.
I just think it's sad that like they don't have that same support
It is.
that they gave to their siblings or like their parents.
Yeah. But I do think that like the epilogue kind of like makes a nod towards like things like being
Yeah, for sure.
more like structurally sound in all of their relationships with each other.
Yeah.
Because Piper and Brendan, like again with the insta love and like they're a
They're
little
like
bit toxic dynamic.
up
Like
each other's butts and like
yeah, like they probably were like really needing to focus on themselves to make it work, like to be
yeah.
honest.
No, I just felt like Hannah just had a very different relationship.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think that Hannah is like personality wise, she's a lot more independent and like strong on her
Mature,
own than Piper was. And
for
Piper
sure.
did develop, but she
Yeah.
still was a little bit dependent for sure. But
But
that
yeah.
kind of wraps up those questions, which we plan on doing for every book now, since we are going to focus more on discussing the book rather than summarizing it.
Join us next mini-sode and we as we kick off spooky season, so it's going to be October 3rd, and so we are going to be reading and discussing scary stories to tell in the dark, which we're very very excited about. It's going to be a two-part mini-sode, and then we are also going to be covering this month the Cat and Mouse Duet by H.D. Carlton. These books are a horror thriller series about a stalker romance.
Yes, and we freaking like love them. There's like ghosts and spooky vibes, but also like real life kind of
Real
horror.
life shit goes down here.
So yeah, and then we will also be celebrating on Halloween, October 31st, with the one and only R.L. Stein, as we each
Woo!
cover our own favorite Goosebumps book. We're
So
each going to
excited.
cover our favorite. So we are so excited. Tabby and I love Halloween. We love spooky season, and we are so excited to make things a little creepy.
Yes.
So join us there. And as always,
Let's get lit.